Now, let's see. I'll go ahead. And according to the text, when does this conversation take place? Not a date, but like...
Wasn't it after Jesus died and resurrected?
Right. I mean, according to the stories told about Jesus, right, he was born, he lived, he did his preaching and did his miracles, he was crucified by the Romans, he was dead for 3 days, and then he rose from the dead, met with some people, and then went back to heaven. Well, this takes place, apparently, during that time, after he had been resurrected from the dead. He's out meeting with different people. There are stories in the Gospels about him talking to people. This conversation is apparently one of these conversations that Jesus had with John after he was resurrected, but before he ascended back into heaven. That's the setting for this conversation. Now, to understand what this story is about, you have to know a little bit about the story that it refers to in the Hebrew Scriptures, which is the Garden of Eden story. I presume, how many of you have heard the Garden of Eden story at some point in time, have some basic familiarity with it? Most of you? Okay, that's good. Help me recount, give me the 60-second version of what happens in the Garden of Eden. It begins with God creating Adam and Eve, and then what? Jim?
He tells them that they can do whatever they want in the garden except eat from the one tree.
Yeah. Adam and Eve are in the Garden of Eden. And he says you can eat of any tree, like if it, there's fruit, there's all sorts of berries or whatever in the garden, and you can eat of anything except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's not the tree of good and evil, that's an abbreviation. It's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then what happens?
Then Satan in the form of a snake comes and...
Well, no, it doesn't say in the text that it's Satan. It just says a serpent.
A serpent.
So a serpent comes to them. Later on, Christians said that serpent was Satan, but it doesn't say that in the text, so it's not projected on there. But the serpent comes to them
and tempts Eve and tells her to eat from the tree.
The serpent tempts Eve to do it, to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. She does.
And then she tells Adam to do it.
She and Adam do. She eats, then she gives it to Adam. Adam eats. And then what happens?
They're banished from the garden.
God punishes them by banishing them from the garden forever. Now, one of the things that's relevant to this is that there were two main trees in the garden. One was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What was the other main tree? You should know. It was the tree of life. There were two trees, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. Once they were banished from the garden, they could no longer eat from the tree of life. Now, the implication is that by eating from the tree of life, they could live forever. And now they can no longer live forever because they don't have access to the tree of life. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because the secret book of John talks about this. So let's look at the beginning, 146. Okay, on 146. The teaching of the Savior being Jesus, and the revelation of the mysteries and the things hidden in silence, even these things which he taught John his disciple. And it happened one day when John, the brother of James, who are the sons of Zebedee, had come up to the temple, and a Pharisee named Arimaeus approached him and said to him, "Where is your master whom you followed?" Right? At this point in the story, Jesus has died resurrected, and this Pharisee's like, "Where is the guy? If he's still around, where is he?" And he said to him, "He has gone to the place from which he came." The Pharisee said to him, "With deception did this Nazarene deceive you, and he filled your ears with lies, and closed your hearts, and turned you from the traditions of your fathers." So this Pharisee accuses him. Jesus has deceived you. He hasn't given you the truth. He's just screwed you up. "When I, John, heard these things, I turned away from the temple to a desert place, and I grieved greatly in my heart, saying, 'How then was the Savior appointed? And why was he sent into the world by his Father? And who is his Father who sent him? And of what sort is that eon to which we shall go?'" Now an eon here is something like, and this isn't a direct translation, but they're talking about like another type of universe, right? If you die and go to heaven, that's like another universe that you go to. In this cosmology, there's multiple eons which you could live in. This world is only one eon. So John's like, which eon did Jesus go to? "For what did he mean when he said to us, 'This eon to which you will go is of the type of the imperishable eon'? But he did not teach us concerning the latter of what sort it is." So Jesus apparently talked about these eons, but didn't tell us much about what that really means. Dana?
Why are there the parentheses around the
Yeah, in parts of the text, like, the Nag Hammadi texts were buried for 2,000 years in the ground, and parts of it have rotted away. And where they have the square brackets is where the text is a little bit unclear, and the scholars have to do their best guess to what that means. So, John has just been challenged by this Pharisee, and John's like, "Oh crap, I don't know how to answer his questions." Well, never fear. Next page. "Straight away, when I was contemplating these things, behold, the heavens opened, and the whole creation which is below heaven shone, and the world was shaken." So the heavens opened, everything shines, and everything shakes. "I was afraid, and behold, I saw in the light a youth who stood by me." And then the youth turns into an old man and then into a servant, although he goes on to say it's not actually three different things, it's three people in one. You're probably not meant to understand this precisely, but who's appeared to him? Jesus. Jesus is going to give him a message. Now, what Jesus tells John first begins with this character named the Monad. Who is the Monad? What's that? Well, not just God. More like top God. Because there are multiple gods here in this story. The Monad is the top God and the best one. Some of the characteristics of the Monad, if you look about 2/3 of the way down on 147 in the left column, the Monad is a monarchy with nothing above it. There's nothing above the Monad. He exists as God, the Father of everything. He is invisible. He is incapable of corruption. He is incorrupt. You can't affect him in any negative way. He's invisible. He's eternal. He does not lack anything. He's perfect. He is unsearchable. He's invisible and eternal. Again, it mentions invisible and eternal multiple times. He's also associated with light. He is light, the source of light. This is basically God the Father.